Hi, so I'm Guillaume from Facebook AI and the University of Paris 6. And today I'm going to talk about unsupervised machine translation. So unsupervised machine translation is basically the task of creating some translation system between two languages. So typically, one application could be, let's say you have some text, some documents, like some books, written in some language, and you don't know anything about this language. It can be some unknown language or even some alien language or whatever. And you want to translate this into English, but you don't have any dictionary, you don't have anything at all. So the question is, how would you do this? So you might wonder what is the connection with GAN, because here there won't be any nice generation of images or anything. But if you look at all this recent paper of, for instance, CircleGAN that does some unsupervised alignment between, let's say, realistic images to like paintings or pictures taken during the day versus pictures taken during the night. So it's very similar. You can see this at some CircleGAN but for text, where here the domains are not pictures taken during the day and the night, but like English and some other language that we don't know. But for some, so what is the motivation here? So from some practical applications. So if you look at all the recent advances in machine translation, you can see that MT systems are very powerful, in particular in language pairs like English French or English German. But the problem is that these models are only good for language pairs like this, where you have a lot of data. But if you look at some other languages, for instance, like Vietnamese or Norwegian, so these languages are very popular, you have a lot of speakers, but still, in these languages, the amount of parallel data is much smaller, and the quality of MT system drops drastically. But there is something which is much easier to find, it is monolingual data. So for each of these languages, you can go on Wikipedia, find hundreds of thousands of Wikipedia articles, so you can actually gather them to create some monolingual corpora. So now the questions are, so how can we use this monolingual data to improve MT systems? Because usually MT systems, what you have is, let's say, 1 million English sentences, and for each of these sentences, you have the translation in another language. But here, so how can we use monolingual data to improve this MT system? So people have already answered the two first questions. How can we boost MT systems that have a little bit of parallel data with monolingual data? But here we're interested in the last case. So how can we learn without any supervision at all? So we don't have any information, not any dictionary or anything. So the outline of the talk is going to be very simple. So first of all, I'm going to summarize what people do in the semi-supervised setting. So which is a case where you have a little bit of supervision, so a little bit of parallel data, and a lot of monolingual sentences. Then I'm going to talk about unsupervised word translation, which is basically how would you create a dictionary between two languages given some independent monolingual corpora, which is basically a simpler case than unsupervised translation, because if you cannot make translation at a word level, there is no hope you can make translation at a sentence level. And then we're going to see how we can extend this unsupervised word translation system to the sentence case. So for this, we're going to see two approaches, a neural approach and a phrase-based approach. So for the semi-supervised setting, there is a very simple method, but which is still extremely powerful. So the idea is quite simple. So let's say you want to create an MT system from English to French. So French is the target language. But let's say you just have a little bit of parallel sentences, a little bit of parallel sentences from English to French. So what you can do is that if you have a lot of monolingual French sentences that you can collect on Wikipedia or anything, what you can do is that instead of training a system from English to French directly, you can train a system in the opposite direction. So you are going to train a system to go from the target domain to the source domain. So here you train a French to English system, and you are going to use it to translate your French corpus. So you translate your French sentences into English. So in doing so, you are going to generate a parallel corpora, a parallel corpus of English to French, where the English side is noisy. But in practice, it turns out that if you train the corpus on the concatenation of these two things, so not only on the small English-French parallel corpus you have, but on this plus the one you generated, then you actually get a much better MT system. So you can actually dramatically improve the performance. So this is what people do for language pairs that have a little bit of resources, and it's very efficient. But it still requires your initial MT system in French to English to be good enough, so you still need quite some parallel sentences to be able to use this. So now for the unsupervised word translation, so what I'm going to present is from our last year paper at ICLR 2018, word translation without parallel data. So the idea of this work was inspired from this paper of Nicolas Fabrer in 2013, exploiting similarities among languages for machine translation. And the idea in this paper was to realize that if you take two corpora, so let's say one corpus in English and one corpus in Italian. Then if you train some monolingual embeddings for each of them, so this is something you can do, let's say with Word2Vec or on FastText or anything. So you are going to get some English embeddings, some independent Italian embeddings. And what they realized in this paper is that these two monolingual spaces are actually very similar. So they actually realized that you can actually just take a neural network and map the source embeddings to the target embeddings. And then they realized that the mapping between these two spaces were actually simpler than they thought, and that they don't even need a neural network, but just a simple linear mapping. So you can just compute a matrix W that will map the source embeddings to the target ones. And then even later, people realized that this sort of mapping can actually be orthogonal, which means that these two spaces, the English embeddings and the Italian embeddings, are actually isometric spaces. And what is nice is that if you are able to make an alignment like this, what you can do is take a word, let's say in English, so let's say cat, you can map it to the target space, and if you look at the nearest neighbor in the target space, it's going to be something like gatto, which is the translation in Italian. And this way you can create some dictionaries. So if you are able to make a mapping between these spaces, you can actually generate a dictionary. So the question is, how do you generate this mapping? How do you compute the value? So here they were in the weakly supervised setting where they actually had some supervision. So you have a little bit of supervision. For them, the supervision was to take a dictionary of, let's say, 5,000 word pairs. So you have 5,000 word translation, let's say cat, gatto, deep, profondo. And they use this to create two matrices, X and Y, where basically X is going to be a matrix of size 1,000, D, and same for Y. And then you have that the first line of X is going to be the embedding of cat, the first line of Y will be the embedding of gatto, the second line will be the embedding of deep and profondo. And you do this for all your word pairs. And then you can actually just compute the matrix W that will minimize the distance between W, X, and Y in the formulas now. And what is nice is that if you assume that W is orthogonal, then there is a closed form solution to this. You can actually just compute the SVD of Y X transpose and it will give you W. So you can find this without doing any training. So if you have a small dictionary, you can create X and Y, compute W, and then for any word which is not in your dictionary, you can take, so if you have a word S, you can take the embedding XS, map it to the target space, so with WXS. And if you look at the word T in the target space that minimizes the percent distance between WXS and YT, then it's going to be a translation of XS, or at least something which is semantically quite relevant. So another question is, can we find W in some unsupervised way? Because if you look at these spaces, it's pretty clear that you can just take X, make a rotation, and you're going to get Y. So how can we find this in some unsupervised way? Because in practice, these embeddings are not in dimension 2, but in dimension 300. So we need to find a way, some algorithms that can do it automatically for us. So the reasoning here was that if really there is a mapping W that can map X to Y, then if you sample some element either from WX or from Y, you will never be able to predict where it comes from. Because if really these spaces are overlapping, then if you take something from the union of these spaces, you won't be able to say this is from the source or from the target embeddings. So this is where we use adversarial training, and here we can use all the techniques that have been developed for GANs. So typically we train a discriminator, and we train it to predict that everything which is coming from WX is a source word, and everything which is coming from Y is a target word. And then at the same time, we train not a generator but a mapping, and we train it to fool the discriminator. So it's kind of the opposite loss of the discriminator. So we train it so that the discriminator believes that what is coming from WX is a target word, and vice versa. So if you do this, so if you alternate between these two steps, discriminator training and mapping training, it's kind of equivalent to like fake images versus real images, but here it's like WX and Y, so it's very similar. And at the end of training, if everything goes well, you can evaluate the quality of your mapping. So here we evaluate it on the word translation task. So the word translation task is pretty simple. You have, let's say, some source words, so 1,500 source words. And the task is to take a source word and to find the proper translation. So you have 200,000 target words, and you need to find the correct translation. So if you were to guess randomly, you will have one chance over 200,000 to find the correct translation. But here in practice, we realize that The mapping we get is pretty good. Typically in English, Spanish, we get 70% accuracy, so in the head, which means that if you take some English words, then 70% of the time, the translation you're going to get is going to be the correct one. So it's good, but it's still not as good as the PROCRUST approach, which is the supervised method, where you assume you have a little bit of supervision. But if you look at the difference between the supervised method of PROCRUST and our thing, I mean, there is not much. PROCRUST, what it is just 5,000 word pairs. So our idea here was to basically just take this mapping we had. So we take the initial mapping we have that gives us 70% accuracy of translation, and we use it to generate a dictionary. So we take our mapping, we take some English words, we translate them to Spanish. We're going to get a dictionary which is going to be at 70% correct. But in practice, it turns out that if you train the supervised method on this dictionary, then you're going to get an even better mapping. So you're going to get a better mapping, so a better dictionary. And then you can actually reiterate over this. Since you have a better mapping, you get a better dictionary, which will give a better mapping, and you can actually iterate like this. And after doing a few iterations, what you get is this. So in here you have the refinement step. And you can see that, for instance, in, let's say, French English, we gain plus 70% of accuracy. So it's nice because compared to the previous approach, PROCRUST, which was state of the art, we actually get sometimes even better results, like in English, Spanish, and all the European and Welsh pair, we have better results. Which means that even though we are not using any supervision, we do better than methods that use supervision. So it's not always true for language pairs like Russian or Chinese, it's not as good, but still we get some reasonable performance. So just to summarize this, so please tell me if you have any questions. So we have 4 steps. The first one is you take 2 corpus, so one corpus in English, one corpus in some other language. You compute some embeddings for them. Then you use the adversarial training to get some mapping, some initial mapping. So this mapping is going to be good, but still approximate, so a little bit rough. So what you do is that you use it to generate some high confidence translation pairs, and then you can use that to apply some supervised method on the translation pair you just generated. And if there were 2 things to remember at the start, is given 2 independent monolingual datasets in a source on the target language, we know how to create high-quality cross-lingual dictionaries and also high-quality cross-lingual embeddings. So it's quite equivalent. If you have embeddings, you can take a word, map it to the target space, get the nearest neighbor to give you a dictionary. And if you have a dictionary, you can use PROCRUST and you will get a map. You will get embeddings. So it's kind of equivalent. So now, so how do we apply this to sentences? So we're going to see 2 approaches, so that are summarized in these 2 papers. So one from Michael last year as well, and a more recent one from EMMLP. So the first question was, can we do what we have done here, but for sentences? So here we have generated some word embeddings, and we did this unsupervised alignment of 2 domains. But can we do the same thing, but for sentences instead of words? So there are many reasons why we can't. And so the most important ones are that, first of all, we don't know how to create sentence embeddings. I mean, we have methods to do this, but they are not as good as what we use for word embeddings. And also, this is, if we were to do this, it would not be a generative model. Let's say we have, for instance, like 50 million sentences, we would have 50 million sentence embeddings, so it would be, first of all, much more expensive. But also, our method will only be able to give us the nearest sentence embedding in the target space, which means that we will not be able to generate new sentences. We don't have any decoder or generative model here, so we will not be able to generate new translations. And this will be kind of an issue because you have almost a limited number of sentences, so it's unlikely that in our target set we have all the possible translations. So our approach was the following. So it's a little bit similar to the one of Word actually. So what we do is that we take some autoencoder of sentences. So we have a model that takes source sentence, transforms them to a vector, so this source, which is basically a latent vector, and then we have a decoder that reconstructs from this latent vector the original sentences. So it's some autoencoder of source sentences. But if we were just to do this, that would be kind of a trivial task, because copying the word one by one is actually something very easy. The model will learn to do this in 2 batches only. So to make the task a little bit more difficult, and to learn some relevant embeddings, what we do is that we add some noise on the input. So it's kind of some denoising encoder of sentences. So it's pretty standard in Vision, so denoising encoder of images. Initially it was used for that. But in Vision, what you do is that you put some noise on your input image. Here, what we do is that we do some noise like this. For instance, we remove some words randomly from the input. So we give to the encoder Arizona was the first to such a requirement, and we train the decoder to reconstruct the original sentence. We train it to be robust to missing words, and this way we train the generative language model part of the decoder. So another sort of noise we do that we slightly shuffle the word order in the input sequence. So it means that we have an encoder that is robust to the noise in the input, which means that if some words are missing, but if some words are shuffled, the encoder still knows how to recover the original sentence. And then we do this for the target as well, so we have two denoising autoencoder, one that takes source sentences, encodes them, and reconstructs them, and same for the target. And now the idea was to use a discriminative training here. So what we do is that we have a discriminator on top of the encoders. So the discriminator is going to be trained to predict what is coming from the source encoder and what is coming from the target encoder. And now we train the autoencoders not only to auto-reconstruct sentences, but also to fool the discriminator. So the autoencoder will be trying to do two things. Auto-encode sentences, but also align the latent spaces. So align the space of the encoded source sentences with the space of the encoded target sentences. And if these spaces are properly aligned, at test time, what you can do is take a source sentence, you can encode it, and then what you get is the vector this source. But if the alignment is properly done, this vector this source is going to be exactly at the same position in space that the vector z target that would correspond to the translation. Which means that if you give this source to the target decoder, then you're going to get a translation of X source, even though you have never seen any parallel data. So you only train this with the monolingual sentences, but since the encoders have learned to align the latent spaces, you can take some sentence, encode it, feed that to the opposite decoder, and get a translation. So in practice, it's kind of hard for the encoder to fool the discriminator. Usually what you have is that the source encoder will output sentence in one region of the space, and the target one in some very different region. So to prevent this, to actually help the encoders, what we do in practice is that we share the parameters. So we have only one encoder. So all the layers of the encoders are shared. So the source encoder and the target encoder here are the same. The thing is that we cannot really share them because there is one layer, which is the lookup table, which is the first layer of the model, that contains some embeddings for each word. So for each word, in your source vocabulary, you have some vector, and the same for the target vocabulary. So what we do here is that we actually use what we have seen in the first part, which is that we use a cross-lingual word embeddings that we have learned to initialize the lookup tables. So we share all the layers of the encoder on the initial layer, which is the lookup table. We initialize it with our cross-lingual unsupervised word embeddings. So if you do this, it's going to work, but it's not going to work amazing because at test time, what you do is that you actually go from source to target, and from target to source. And this is never something you do at training time. Training time, you only do source to source, target to target. So we would want to train our model to do some source to target on target to source directions. But we can do this because we don't have any parallel sentences, we don't have any parallel data. So what we do is that we generate some artificial translations. So the way we do this is, so it's pretty simple. We just take a sentence, X target from the target sentences. We generate a translation from this, Y bar source. So for instance, the source sentence, the target sentence can be this one, une photo d'une rue Mondierville. Generate a translation for this, a photo of a street crowded in the city, which is a bad translation. But still it's okay, even if it's a noisy translation, you can train the model to say, okay, if you see this sentence in French, in English, then you have to predict this one in French. So you can actually use this sentence pair as if it was a correct translation. And if you train your model like this, it's going to improve. And you can do this in both ways. So you train both the model to go from English to French to English, and French to English to French. So you take a source sentence, get the target translation, and then train the model to go back to the original sentence. And yeah, that's it. It's basically kind of similar to the idea of back translation that I presented at the very beginning, which people use for the semi-supervised today. So just to summarize this, so the steps we have is we learn some denoising autoencoder to learn some sentence representations. We align this sentence representation using some adversarial training, exactly the same way we do for word embeddings, but here we do this for sentence embeddings. We share the parameters to help the encoders to fool the discriminator. On the back translation trick, the cross-lingual domain training here was to actually generate translation during training. It's actually very important, maybe the most important part of all these steps. And finally, we pre-train the word embeddings to be able to share the encoders properly. So very quickly now, the phrase-based approach. So this is something we present in our last paper, and it's actually much simpler and it works also better. So the idea was to use a phrase-based model. So just to summarize this for, probably people probably not all of you know this, it's models that were used like maybe 5 years ago, before MMT, before neural machine translation, and before then it was state-of-the-art models. So the idea of this model is very simple. You have two components essentially, one which is a phrase table. So the phrase table is going to be a list of phrase pairs. So a phrase here is not like, a phrase in English is like a group of words, so like 1, 2, or 3, 4 words, like New York, Barack Obama, or some phrases, precisely. And you have a list of phrase pairs, for instance, the cat, le chat. So you have some phrase in English with a translation in French. And for each of them, you have some translation score. For instance, you have the cat, le chat, 0.5, which means that you have 50% probability that the cat is translated to le chat. And you have also some language model, and this language model is just a model trying to give a score to a sentence that reflects its fluency. For instance, you will give a good score to a sentence that is English, and you will give a bad score to the same sentence when you shuffle the words. Yeah. So now if you have an input sentence that comes in, what you can do is chunk it into some phrases, and you will actually find, you will output the sentences that maximizes the score of both the language model and the phrase table score. So you will have a score for each of these intermediate translation, and you will have a language model score for the entire sentence, and you're trying to find a sentence that maximizes the combination of these two things. So for the language model, you only need target sentences, so you don't need parallel data for this. So if you look at what there really is here, what we really need here is we really need parallel data just for the phrase table. Which means that if we are able to create some phrase table in some unsupervised way, then we are done and we already have our MT system. So now we just need to create this phrase table, and the way we do this is very simple, just like what we have done previously for word translation. So this is the same approach, but instead of word we use phrases. So we take our monolingual corpora, so we have our monolingual corpus in English. What we do is that we merge the command diagrams into phrases. So for instance, if you have New York, you see that this word pairs is very frequent, so you say this is going to be a phrase. You do this for like phrases with size up to 3, for instance. You do this for your target corpus as well. Then you can use word2vec to compute some phrase embedding, and then you can use exactly the same steps to create some unsupervised phrase translation. So it will give us something like this. For instance, if you have heureux, you will have all the possible nearest neighbor. So for each of them, you have some probability translation, which is actually related to the distance between the source word and the target words. And what is nice is that you can also see some words like Union Européenne, so you have a phrase of size 2, which can be aligned to like words like EU in just one word. And if you plug that into your MT system, you actually get some pretty nice translation. So if you look at the results on the use test, corpora, so this corpora is very standard to evaluate MT systems. So here we can see the baseline, so previous models, previous approaches. So if you use this model that we actually generated using user phrase table, we obtain the PBS-MT0 here, which is there. So the improvement is, it's a little bit better, but the improvement is not amazing. But what is nice here is that this method here, PBS-MT0, you can train it in a few minutes. You just need to align some phrase embeddings, while all the other take several days to train. And then if you use the NMT approach I presented before, you get these results. So you can get up to like +8 block points improvement on the English-French direction. And if you look at the phrase-based method that we have here, if we combine this with the iterative back translation step I presented initially, so you train a model from English to French, you use that to translate an English corpus to French, then you use this resulting parallel corpus to train a model in the opposite direction, and if you iterate over this, you get this model, PBS-MTL. So here you have some pretty big improvements, +11 blue in English-French, for instance. And if you combine the two methods, you have something like this. So here we actually are state-of-the-art in every direction. The biggest improvement is going to be like German English, for instance. So if you compare this with supervised model, so here what you have in horizontal lines are basically the performance of our unsupervised models. So in red you have the unsupervised phrase-based model that gets like 28 with a score on English-French. And you can see that this model does as good as a supervised model trained with 400,000 sentences. And it also does as well as a supervised phrase-based model trained with 100,000 sentence pairs. So here what you can see that the phrase-based models are at least still better than neural approaches if you don't have a lot of parallel sentences. For the neural approach to be better, you need to have at least 1 million sentences. But still it means that if you have some unknown language, or some language for which you have no resources at all, you can create an empty system which is as good as if you were to have 400,000 sentence pairs that are not easy to generate. So here you can see some example of German sentence on the translation in English that the model learned to build some competence support as well. So you can see that even if it's not easy sentences, the model is actually to find some pretty accurate translation. And here we do actually German English, but in some more recent work, what we do is actually any kind of domain. So like in visions, where you have these realistic pictures versus paintings and everything. Here, instead of English German, you can also do, so what we did recently is something like messages written by young people versus messages written by more aged people, or messages written by male versus female, or people happy versus unhappy. So you can actually make any kind of style transfer with for text here. Yeah, so if you have any questions.